started. We're excited to welcome you all to our first live Friday Focus in a little over a month. So we're really excited to be here with the Crossville team at the Plateau Discovery Gardens, which is the third branch of the UT Gardens. And so you're going to get a great tour of a little bit about their history, a little bit about how this garden has formed, and you're going to be able to get to hear from a whole lot of the master gardeners that are actually live on site right now. And with that welcome, I'm going to turn the floor over to Greg Upchurch, and he's going to open us up and give you a little bit of a big picture of what's been happening here in the gardens for the last few years.
You bet. Thank you, Dr. Baumgartner. I would just like to start out with just welcoming everyone to the Plateau on a beautiful September morning. And I know today kind of carries some special meanings, September 11th. And I remember that day as being a spectacular day like today as well. But today we're going to share a lot of good memories and things that's happened with the Plateau Discovery Garden. We're going to give you some of the history and things that's happened over the years here at the garden. So I'm actually broadcasting to you live from our outdoor classroom that was a vision of the master gardeners, and one of the later features that was instilled in this garden. And you'll see different clips and views of what we have to offer here today. Now, I don't want to talk a lot about the program. I actually want to leave that up to our master gardeners and other garden staff to visit about the different components of our garden. So we're just very, very appreciative to have you here with us today. As you can kind of see the images that we've got on the screen there really wasn't much of anything here in this plot of land other than a weather station, a few forsythia bushes, and some just turf grass, different research had been conducted over the years. So there really wasn't much of anything. But over time, you're going to see, and as our master gardeners and some of the research center staff talks a little bit about the transformation of what our garden, where it started to basically what it has evolved to. With that, our first speaker that I'd like to introduce to you this morning is Miss Ray Hosier. And Ray, if we had a founding person, it would be Ray. She is our George Washington to the Cumberland County Master Gardener Program. She was the initial lady that wanted to get the program started. She was the initial president here in the Cumberland County Master Gardeners. She will give you a little bit of kind of history of our program and actually how the garden itself got started and a little bit of an overview of that garden. She's coming to you live from a water fountain feature in our garden that's basically memorializes her family and their contribution to the garden that we've got here on the Cumberland Plateau. So I don't want to take up any more time. And with that, I will stop the screen share and I will kick it over to Ray and let her give you a little bit of the overview and history of our garden.
Hi, I am Ray Hosier. I was the first president of the Cumberland County Master Gardeners who had their first training class in 1998. And I also was one of the people who were on the steering committee to start this garden. And that, I think, is one of the unique things about this garden is that it was a three-pronged partnership between the AgResearch Center, our extension office, and the county master gardeners. And we did such a good job that University of Tennessee came to us and asked us to be the third of the UT garden. When we started out, we were a rural county, and we had a lot of pressure from people who had moved in as retirees and were not familiar with the climate, with what could grow here, that kind of thing. And so our then extension agent Roger Thaxton agreed to do the Master Gardener thing, but he said to us, I've got a lot of things with farmers and growers, and you're going to have to be fairly independent here. And that was one of the things that was our challenge. We found out from the Master Gardener Conference in Chattanooga, that was the month after we got elected as heads of the group, that about what things other counties did. We got a chance to network and get some contacts from established counties so that we could ask them questions. And in talking with other people, we found out that there were other counties like ours that had lots of things that the county agents were busy with, and they didn't have that much time for master gardeners, and that often those groups failed. And it was kind of a challenge to us, and that started the spirit of this whole group of master gardeners. We were ready to take on a challenge. We even, when our extension agent had an illness and then he retired, we started the Master Gardener desk at the extension office. And by the time we came to 5 years, we had quite a group of Master Gardeners, and we took on a spring flower and garden show. And that went until, that was from 2003 until 2019. And then with COVID-19, we couldn't go beyond that. But as I say, it was kind of a risky business, certainly for Walt here at the AgResearch Center. He's saying, oh, a bunch of volunteers, are they going to keep this neat? Is this going to be a thing that works out well? But it did, because we had that can-do spirit, and we had a really good partnership where all of us contributed. Now, let's talk about some of the first gardens that we had, and we're going to send you over to Carol Burdett, over by our first 2005 garden area.
Okay, one thing I'd like to introduce right off the bat, you had a chance to meet Ray, who I said was our George Washington. Miss Carol Burdett is one of at least our Thomas Jefferson. She was very instrumental in terms of establishing this garden, and if you look back over her shoulder, you'll see some of those original plants that she and I went across East Tennessee kind of collecting to put in. So Carol, again, has been a part of this program, and like Ray, has done newspaper articles. She's represented us on a state level, and so she's going to talk about some really from the old features of our initial bed to one of our newest beds, our conifer garden. And with that, Carol?
Okay, well, I love to talk conifers, so we'll start there. So as Greg said, the garden behind us was our very first garden. That was the 2005 Master Gardener class planted that. And because they were newbies and I wasn't, Greg asked me if I would kind of mentor this project. And so I picked out the plants. Well, I love conifers. We all know what a conifer is, right? The word means cone bearing, but they're evergreens, needle evergreens. So I put a lot of conifers in the garden. We tried to have everything so that when it grew up, the different plants would touch each other so that you wouldn't get sun down to the ground. Of course, that way we won't have as many weeds because nobody likes to pull weeds. And you see that there are things back there that are not conifers. We've got those beautiful crepe myrtle. And you see dynamite blooming back there. We've got pocamoka blooming over here. Anyway, it was quite an experience. The group also learned to put down a really heavy layer of newspaper. And I mean 10, 20 layers thick so that the weeds couldn't go through them. And then we covered the top with mulch. And the mulch came from the power company. It was wood chips. And so that was the start of our conifers. And then, I don't know how many gardens we had out here. Not a whole lot. There were some research gardens in here too. We probably had 7 or 8 of them. And people were getting tired because of the different gardens. People were getting tired of coming out here. They kind of said, if I wanted to pull weeds, I'd do it in my own yard. Well, along came a fireball named Nancy Christopherson. Nancy came to us from Michigan. She was master gardener up there. And so she could see the potential out here. She could see that we could have a wonderful garden if we all got behind it. And she was Miss Enthusiasm herself. In fact, when you park at the administration building and walk into the gardens, you'll see that there's a big bronze plate there that says this garden is dedicated to Nancy Christopherson. So anyway, she gave us the enthusiasm and the will to come back out here and pull the weeds and do the pruning and keep it going. Well, one day Nancy said to me, Carol, I know you like conifers. Are you a member of the Conifer Society? Never heard of it. Just because I like conifers. Lots of things I haven't heard of. But she said the American Conifer Society is something we might want to invite out here. Well, anybody can become a member. You pay your dues and you get your literature. But to become a reference garden, that's another project. And so we got started on that project. And amongst other things, we had to be open a lot of hours, I think 5 days a week, 8 hours. Well, you know, this is a research center, so we're open during all the daylight hours. That worked. We also had to have an information center so people could find out about the American Conifer Society. We're good there. And we had to have at least 25 different plants, different conifers that belong to at least 7 different conifer families. Now that was tricky because I was new to this. Anyway, it was a learning project. That's what master gardeners are all about. So in this garden, now the one we're in right now that we're standing in, this is a separate garden. You saw the 2005 garden. This one didn't come in until about 4 years ago, 216. And we planted in that garden things that the homeowner could find easily. So he could go to his local box store or local nursery and find all those plants to put in his own yard. This one was going to be different. This garden has plants you're probably not going to find locally. But if you want to drive to Sevierville, Watertown, or McMinnville, you can get these plants. But come on out. We have the labels by each one of the plants. Once we actually became a Conifer, American Conifer Society reference garden, we applied for a grant and they gave us $1,000. Well, we bought some really nice labels. So when you come out, you'll be able to see all the different conifers and exactly what they are.
Walt Hitch is the Research and Education Center director here. He provides a critical component of us being able to do this endeavor. Everything from staff to just his input on different projects and his wisdom on a lot of things. Just a overwhelming great resource to have working with the Master Gardener program here in Cumberland County.
Good morning. My name is Walt Hitch. I am the center director here at the Plateau Research and Education Center here in Crossville. And I was asked to discuss how the gardens in the center interact with as far as the research goes. So first of all, let me welcome you. I know there are folks on here from all across the state, so welcome here this morning, beautiful morning. But I'm going to back up just a little bit and give you a little bit about the research component. Okay, and so the University of Tennessee, the Institute of Agriculture, has 10 ag research centers across the state. And each of those has several areas of focus. And we're just one of those 10 centers. And a little history here. We were founded in 1943. We're 2,100 acres on 3 different tracts, and we focus here in beef production, fruit and vegetables, forages, and ornamentals. So our function here is to facilitate research. And research is replicated, scientific, statistical experiments. And so you ask, how is that used? Research then translates into recommendations. It turns into new varieties, production methods, management practices, all those kinds of things. And so in 2020, we hosted here, we facilitate that for the faculty, but we had 35 research trials here, hosting 17 faculty. And I quit counting on graduate students, because all those faculty have multiple graduate students that are doing their research, getting their advanced degrees where we are. So in the early 2000s, one of the deans challenged us to engage in non-traditional agriculture. And when I say traditional, I always say cows, sows, and plows. So we're talking about, beef, dairy, corn, cotton, soybeans, even the fruits and vegetables. But we didn't have we had some ornamental research, but we didn't have a lot going on. But one of those ways to do that, and I think Ray mentioned it in the unique community that we're in, that we have a lot of people moving here or transitioning here from other places across the country. And so the Master Gardeners are a huge resource to supplying information to them. And so I met with Greg, and about that time they had thoughts of having a demonstration garden. And so we went out and looked, and we set aside about 2 acres, and that's how the garden started in 2005 with, as was described, plot number 1. Okay, so at the end of the 1 year, you have 1 plot, not drawing a lot of people in to come visit that. But we then went, the next year, the next Master Gardener class, we had plot 2, and so we just get more and more plots. But then came along Dr. Mark Wyndham, and he said, he contacted me, and he said, I have some ornamental research that I would like to do in Crossville. And so we had some discussions about how much of that could we incorporate into a public garden. And that we took some of it that was capable of doing that, and we put it into the garden. And so you'll still see remnants of that in the garden. We at that time here's a little bit of leftover rose research. A lot of that was not put into the garden, but we still have some plants here. We've got some crepe myrtles. We have ornamental grasses that you can't see in this screen, but behind me you see some hydrangeas, and behind that red buds. And so those were replicated research trials that we have here. The one to my left here is a Southern Living selection trial. So they'll send us plants before they're released to say, all right, how well are they going to do in a colder setting? You gotta understand, on the plateau, we're at about 1,800, 1,850 feet of elevation, so we're a little colder climate. And so we test a lot for, most of that was disease resistance, selecting for disease resistance in those, as well as cold tolerance. So these are still in the garden today and can be enjoyed in here. So I always think that both of those complement each other. And so we put these in the garden, giving the garden some bulk and initially, and now we've actually taken parts of it out as the gardens and the plots expand and the projects are over. So how did that mesh with the Plateau Discovery Garden and the demonstration garden? Well, to me, they're both on the same focus. All right, and so the experts that were there, and when I say that, those speakers that if you've been to our Fall Gardeners Festival, you will have seen them. Dr. Mark Wyndham, Dr. Alan Wyndham, Dr. Frank Hale, Tom Samples, all those faculty members you'll see here making presentations about things that their expertise. And so I think that complements the program. The plants complement what was going on here. But from the other side, it became the master gardeners began to help, not just in the gardens, but they helped us establish some of these research plots. So I remember the days where we put out the first big rose plot. I think it was about 700 or 800 roses, and we planted those in the rain in one day with the help of the volunteers from the Master Gardener organization. We then planted the hydrangeas and the red buds in the gardens, and they assisted with that as well. And most recently, we have new rose plots, and there are probably about 2,000 of them over there, and we planted those with the assistance of some garden volunteers as well. And so we really talk about a partnership and a symbiotic relationship, and we all hear those things referenced a lot of times, but let me just say, I think that's truly what we have here. None of those three legs, and I'll say that being the Master Garden Organization, UT Extension, UT AgResearch, we couldn't do this without each other participating in that. And I know Ray mentioned that, and that's the spirit, and I think that whole volunteer spirit is the success of this program. As we all know, a group of folks can make or break you, and in this situation, they made it, and they continue to make it. And the group changes, people get added, and some step away for whatever reason. But that core group of what continues to help here in the garden is what helps. So our rose, I'm going to go back to the research piece. Our rose work today is geared around rose rosette, if you should be familiar with that disease. And I do believe we have the largest field trial of rose rosette in the country. And so we have about 2,000 roses out now, and we continue that research, and we've been in that about 7 years now. From an outreach standpoint, the Fall Gardeners Festival began as a fall clinic for the Master Gardeners, but it got bigger and bigger. And so as it got bigger and bigger, we opened it up to the public, now listed as one of the official UT field days and those kind of things. But there'll be 1,000 people in attendance in that every fall. Obviously not this past August due to the virus, but it'll be back. So we invite you to attend to that. So the success of this, and you hear me say Plateau Discovery Garden because for years that was it. But the success of that drove really UT to say, wouldn't you like to become part of the State Botanical Garden and the third garden beside the third next to Knoxville and Jackson? And so success breeds success, and I think that's what we have here. Once again, I believe the faculty resources, the research and extension resources complement each other. It's great to have this research and education, the demonstration garden here as part of the center. I go back to where I said I started. We were to engage non-traditional agriculture. And I think if you look at the successes of this garden and the thousands of people that come through here, I think that from my perspective has accomplished part of my mission. And then the mission of the Master Gardeners when they put this in was demonstration and education. So I think all of those, even though they come together with a different perspective, have been accomplished through this garden. If you come to the Fall Gardeners Festival or some other events, there will be a presentation about what else goes on here on the center from a research standpoint. There'll be a wagon tour where you can get on and ride through, and we'll show you those other things that are going on. So yes, I do sneak the opportunity to tell our story to visitors that come here. But it is that wagon is typically full and requested every year, and we continue to do it. So by demand, I think you as clientele, public, however you want to perceive that, you have an interest in what's going on here because I've been invited out to talk about other things that go on at the center, and they'll see things and they'll want to know what that is. So we're glad to have the gardens here. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this presentation today. And now I appreciate the support. And I think now we're going to turn that over to going back to Greg. And I believe we're going to the kindergarten, one of the feature presentations in the garden.
Want to introduce to you a couple of ladies here that are key Master Gardeners in our community. Miss Rhoda Hiller in the green Master Gardener shirt, Miss Debbie Ward. They are really two instrumental Master Gardeners in terms of getting projects done here. Both these ladies have been a part of growing and developing the kindergarten here They've served with some of the different projects that's been going on out here in the kindergarten. And I'm just going to turn it over to them and let them tell you a little bit about the kindergarten.
Hi, and welcome to our children's garden, affectionately known as the Kinder. I've had people ask how we came about, and it all started in 2012 with two master gardeners having a discussion out here about how the children's gardens in the United States were growing in popularity, and they thought it would be really neat if we could have one out here. The committee selection came together that night, and very quickly the individuals they had selected were called. And immediately we got together and we started talking about garden design, the age that we wanted to reach, and what the focus of our garden was going to be. The age was easy. We chose 3 to 7, and the focus we wanted to be education. It was a little bit more difficult in putting the design together, but we all sat down and worked out a nice design that was going to flow. And by December, we submitted our plans out here to Wall Hitch and to our umbrella committee, which is a group of master gardeners that are put together to review plans and ideas for growth in the garden. And we were approved right off the bat. After that, the fund began a fundraising. So we had to put together publicity packets for grants, donations, and newspaper submissions. So we did that over the winter, and by April of 2013, we had the beginnings of our funds to start the garden. We started with about $11,050, which is not a lot of money. Some people think it is, but considering the scope of work that we wanted to touch on out here, and all the educational features that we wanted to put in, it really wasn't. But we got started anyway. So we started on our groundwork and got that prepped, and then it was time for the elements to put in. We purchased a few, but many were created right here on site by some of our volunteer master gardeners, and all came in with talents in construction, metalworking, artistry, music. And we had a lot of volunteers and labor, materials, and extra funds. So it was a group effort. We got it all put together, and in June 2015, we had our grand opening, and it was a glorious day out here. In 2015, later in the year, we submitted our gardens for the Search for Excellence Award in the youth category. And in 2016, we won that award, And then in late 2017, we applied to Nature Explore for the kinder to be approved as a Nature Explore classroom. And in January of 2018, we became officially certified as a Nature Explore classroom. And we meet all the science benchworks in kindergarten and many of the math benchworks. And what's great to see is the children come out here and use their imaginations and play, and they're not realizing they're learning. And because Rhoda spends so much time with the children in the classroom, I'll hand it over to her so she can tell you about all the activities that go on here and what we have available at the gardens.
Okay, the committee decided that there should be certain areas, and they decided on 10 different areas. And this came about because of children's interests of ages 3 to 7. As you walk into the front of our garden, you will see Rocky Raccoon, and he is our welcome mascot over here. We also have a green tunnel. The structure was built by one of our master gardeners, and it has vining plants on it in the summertime. So it is a green tunnel, and the kids get to run through it, find all kind of neat things inside of it. We have a log fort. This is our messy area. It has all kind of logs. It has chunks of wood where the kids can just build things. They really enjoy that, especially with that age group. we have an art and creativity area, and we also have a learning cottage. The learning cottage is open 365 days out of the year to the public. They can come out here, they can get things out for like chalk drawings. They can have the magnifying glass to look at things and just to see things up close, like insects and our flowers and items like that. There's also a music and movement area. All of our outdoor musical instruments were built by master gardeners, and we have a tongue drum, we have large chimes, we even have a set of bongos made out of PVC pipe. There's a little deck off of our cottage, and that's where kids can express themselves. We have scarves, they can do dance moves with the music in the background. Then we have a pergola back here. This is our learning and our gathering and our storytelling place. They can go back there, they can sit with a little shade, they can work on all kinds of little projects. We have a labyrinth over in the other corner. Plants that go around in a circle. They can go with a scavenger hunt because we strategically place little animals in there that they can find. We have a root viewing box, which is really neat. We plant plants and you can see the roots because it's actually an aquarium. So you can see the roots. The kids love that. We have an herb garden, which is a sensory garden for all of the senses, for sight, smell, taste, and feel. And they can do all of that because it's a safe place to be. Our newest area is our water play area. We also have a sandbox over there. We have a digging area. And kids 3 to 7 love water, sand, and dirt. And they really enjoy themselves. We utilize our kindergarten. We invite the kindergarten children from Cumberland and Bledsoe County and all of the homeschool children out for a day in the garden. I am one of the storytellers. We have a storytelling area. We also have a science and learning where they get to plant a plant, so they get to take a plant home that day. We have a scavenger hunt. We hide little animals all through the garden, and they have clipboards. We have to go find them, and then they get to play. They get to play in this beautiful kindergarten. We love it out here. Kids come out, you can just see how much fun they have. So if you ever get a chance, you're in Crossville, you have kids, bring them on over.
And I'd like to add, again, it's organized schools that are bringing these classrooms in. They've got activities from start to finish of the day, and the master gardeners basically work those children through in various groups to give them different, everything from scavenger hunts to storytelling and exercise. So it's truly a full day. And as Rhoda and Debbie said, truly one of the unique features about our garden that we're very, very appreciative of and truly enjoy sharing with the community. So with that, I think we're ready to move over to probably our last and latest addition to our garden, and that will be Miss Shalina Durkot. Now, Shalina, while she has been our last member, and the garden's been going on for a number of years, she was someone that we envisioned from day one in terms of having someone out to serve as the kind of coordinator, facilitator, take care of the daily activities of our garden. And so we're so appreciative to have her on staff now, working to kind of fulfill those. So with no further comment, I'll just shift it over and turn it over to Shalina.
Good morning. I'm happy to be a part of your Friday Focus and have the opportunity to showcase the Crossville Garden. It's also an honor to be a part of the UT system as I am an alumni And thanks to everyone you've already heard from this morning and many other Master Gardeners, the opportunity finally presented itself where I get to fill this position. I've been here about 2.5 years now. I'm standing in one of my favorite places in the garden. This is our foodscaping plot, and just adjacent to that is our butterfly garden. You may notice a lot of the butterflies or other pollinators like bees flying around. Obviously, one of my responsibilities here is to oversee the daily operations of the garden. It's quite a task. You know, it's not as big as Knoxville, but there's still a lot to maintain and to get it looking the way that you've been able to see it today. And thankfully, I continue to have the help of Cumberland County Master Gardeners. This year, we were also able to have some community volunteers to come out as well. And I try to pair them up with our fellow Master Gardeners, and maybe some of them will like to join the program as well. If not, it's still an educational opportunity or just an opportunity to get outside in the outdoors. This is a great space to enjoy the beautiful color, gain gardening experience, and an easy place for social distancing. So anyway, some of the other things I do, normally, under normal circumstances, I will be giving regular garden tours. Sometimes they're large group tours and Master Gardeners will assist me. Sometimes it's just, you know, daily visitors that come out. Some of them, you know, the garden already was a great success before I got to come on board. I know they mentioned maybe 1 or 2 of the awards, but thanks to Master Gardeners, you know, we received 4 different Search for Excellence awards, including education, innovation, demonstration, even an international award. Carol mentioned becoming a reference garden for the American Conifer Society, so I will continue with those efforts to make sure we stay certified. We will add additional conifers to that collection every year, as well as make sure we have some conifer-related educational material, whether that happens through a garden tour, through some of the garden classes, maybe even at one of our big events like Fall Gardeners Festival. Behind me in the butterfly garden, we also are an official monarch way station. We have 3 different milkweeds in there. We also have tons of other great nectar and pollinator plants to help sustain and support the migration and keep the monarchs coming through. The Nature Explorer Outdoor Classroom, our kindergarten, that's a certification I'll have to keep up with every year as well. So we will continue to add more educational materials as well as additional structures in that space. Let's see, there's so many things. So the virtual avenue, I think that's been a big thing for everybody this year. But there is a silver lining. I definitely feel like with all the new visitors we've had come through that never even heard about the garden, we're doing weekly walk through the gardens, which is virtual footage that we'll share on our websites here at Plateau Research Center, Cumberland County Master Gardener websites, as well as multiple Facebook pages that one of our Master Gardeners maintain, whether that's UT Gardens Crossville, Plateau Discovery Gardens, and the Cumberland County Master Gardener Facebook page. So you can find those and other educational videos. We released several the week that would have been our Fall Gardeners Festival. I contacted several of those presenters, and so topics and presenters that would have been here for Fall Gardeners Festival were still able to get out that educational aspect. We have an umbrella committee that I'm chairman of, but that is comprised of several Master Gardeners, Walt, our director here at the Research Center, Greg, our ag agent, and myself. So all of us will discuss anything that happens with the garden. So we make these decisions together. And also, you know, bounce off and share new ideas, how we can help it to continue to grow. So, I mean, I look forward to the future, to continue to have the garden growing. I love working with our summer interns, as I was an intern once upon a time myself in the gardens in Knoxville. I will tell you their project requirements and the things they're coming out with these days is just beyond me and so impressive. We've had one install an aquaponics system. I don't know if they mentioned augmented reality in the kindergarten, but I had never even heard of that term before. So kids these days are really into technology. So this is a way They can get outside nature education, but also kind of go with the times, and we have that virtual aspect. You know, there's little garden characters that will be right there in the garden with them, and then it's very interactive, you know, giving them quizzes about identifying the different parts of a plant. Or there's a bee that talks about pollination or where we get our honey, and those are stationed throughout the different activity stations in the kindergarten. Some upcoming projects. Well, one big project when I initially come on board was our daylily plot. Master gardeners, a big group of them, had gone to dig 450 different types of daylilies from a local daylily farmer that had donated those. And then one of my tasks when I come on board was to get together a group of master gardeners, and we would divide all of these into like 5 separate clumps or fans and randomly plant them throughout a very large plot, which resulted in over 2,200 daylilies. Definitely invite you out, not just to see the garden, but that daylily plot. I believe this year it was maybe end of June to the middle of July was its peak, but there's a lot of rebloomers out there, so it will continue to bloom. There's some still blooming now, and last year I saw some still blooming in October. Other upcoming projects, you know, we would like to do trials in all the gardens. So one that's already been approved by the committee, and we will work on revisiting this spring, is adding a reblooming iris trial as well as pineapple lily trial, because we are the coldest research station here. So that makes this particular garden a great location to test for hardiness. But we'll continue, you know, they're plants, so that'll continue to grow and expand. Coming up here pretty soon with Dr. Andrea Ludwig, we are revamping our rain garden, so that's an immediate project. I imagine we'll add other plots throughout the years, we'll add other events. It's always nice to come up with different fundraising opportunities that all go right back into the operations and development of the garden. I think I've covered enough. I hope you all are able to make it out for a visit. And I think they're going to wrap it up with some awesome aerial footage we have of the garden. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to having you out here.
One thing that I would like to add in to Shalina, she is actually standing in that butterfly garden, and there's edible landscape within the garden plot. I hope that all of you have appreciated the butterflies that have been fluttering around her as she's been speaking. And I wanted to give a special shout out to one of our master gardeners, Mr. Ernie Wood. Ernie couldn't be with us today. He's been a little bit under the weather, but a lot of what you might see out here doesn't happen if it's not for our master gardener, Mr. Ernie Wood. And I tell you what, he works his tail off to make it look special, and there's a special place in heaven for people like Ernie, given all the work that he's put in this garden. So going to send you back now to Dr. Baumgartner. She's got an aerial video that will kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we've got going on here at the garden.
I just want to say thanks to the whole Cumberland County team, the ones you got to see today and the ones who you know were doing a lot of work to get prepared for some of the great things that you saw here today.
Garden changes throughout the seasons, and I would encourage you, you know, don't just make one visit, make multiple visits, because the spring will look definitely different from the midsummer to the fall, and obviously in the wintertime when we get some cold and snow, come join us at probably the coldest research center in the state of Tennessee. Thanks for joining us on the Plateau.